You're a fake, and don't deserve to wear that medal. Judge Patricia Brennan's angry voice fills the quiet courtroom as she leans over and tears the bronze star off 84-year-old Sam Kovac's shirt. The medal crashes to the floor as 200 people watch in shock, not knowing that the shaking old man once saved 7 soldiers in Vietnam by carrying them through enemy gunfire. What happens next will leave you speechless. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon because this story shows why we must never judge a book by its cover. Drop a comment below if you think this judge went too far. Let's honor our heroes together. Sam Kovac sat in the back row of the crowded courtroom, his weathered hands gripping a thin folder of papers. At 84, his back was bent and his walk was slow, but his eyes still held the sharp look of someone who had seen too much. The bronze star on his faded jacket caught the harsh courtroom lights as he waited for his case to be called. Judge Patricia Brennan was known for being tough. She had been on the bench for 15 years and never showed mercy to anyone she thought was lying. Today, she was in an especially bad mood. 3 cases had already gone badly, and she was ready to go home. Sam's case was simple. He was being sued by his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, over a property line dispute. She claimed Sam had built his fence 2 feet onto her land. Sam had brought his old property papers to prove he was right, but they were yellow with age and hard to read. When the clerk called his name, Sam stood up slowly and walked to the front. His old combat boots made soft sounds on the marble floor. He wore his bronze star proudly, as he did every day. It was the only thing left from his army days that still meant something to him. Judge Brennan looked up from her papers and saw Sam approaching. Her eyes immediately went to the medal on his chest. She had seen too many fake veterans in her courtroom over the years, and something about this old man bothered her. Sam reached the table and set down his folder. He looked nervous, but determined. Mrs. Chen and her lawyer were already seated at the other table, looking confident with their stack of new documents and surveys. Judge Brennan banged her gavel. The courtroom, packed with people waiting for their own cases, fell silent. She stared at Sam with cold eyes. Your Honor, Sam began in a quiet voice, I've lived on that land for 42 years. My wife and I bought it fair and square. The fence has been there since 1982, and nobody ever said anything until now. Judge Brennan cut him off. Before we go any further, I need to address something. She pointed at Sam's chest. That medal you're wearing, where did you get it? Sam looked confused. Ma'am, I earned it in Vietnam. I was with the 173rd Airborne Brigade from 1967 to 1968. The judge's face got red. She had heard this story before from other men trying to get sympathy. I'm tired of people coming into my courtroom wearing fake medals to get special treatment. You think that piece of metal makes you special? The crowd in the courtroom started whispering. Some people looked uncomfortable, but others nodded along with the judge. Sam's face went pale. Your Honor, I assure you, this medal is real. Sam's voice was shaking now. I was awarded it for actions near Bien Ho in December 1967. I can provide documentation if needed. Judge Brennan slammed her hand on the bench. Documentation. Anyone can fake papers these days. I've seen homeless men wearing purple hearts they bought at pawn shops. I've seen con artists wearing silver stars they ordered online. And now I'm looking at another fake veteran trying to play the hero card. The courtroom was dead silent now. Even Mrs. Chen looked uncomfortable. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, but she shook her head. Sam stood straighter, despite his age. Your Honor, I would never dishonor the memory of my fallen brothers by wearing a fake medal. This bronze star was pinned on my chest by Colonel Matthews himself in 1968. Judge Brennan stood up from her bench. She was a tall woman, and she used her height to intimidate people. That's exactly what a fraud would say. You come in here wearing that medal like some kind of shield, thinking it will help you win your case. Well, I won't stand for it. She walked around the bench toward Sam. The old man didn't move, but his hands were shaking. The entire courtroom watched in shock as the judge approached him. You're a fake, and don't deserve to wear that medal. Judge Brennan reached out and grabbed the bronze star from Sam's jacket. The pin tore through the fabric as she ripped it away. The medal hit the marble floor with a sharp sound that echoed through the silent room. Sam stood there, stunned. A small tear in his jacket showed where the medal had been. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't say anything. He just stared at the medal lying on the floor. Some people in the courtroom gasped. Others looked away. A few pulled out their phones to record what was happening. Judge Brennan walked back to her bench, holding the medal in her hand. This court will not be fooled by fake heroes, she announced loudly. Mr. Kovac, you can pick up your costume jewelry after we finish with your case. Now, let's get on with the real business. Sam bent down slowly to pick up his medal. His old knees creaked as he reached for it. When he stood back up, his face was red with shame and anger. 42 years of proud service, and this is how he was being treated. The courtroom doors at the back suddenly opened. Everyone turned to see who was coming in. A man in a military dress uniform walked in quietly. He was about 50 years old, with silver hair and sharp eyes. His uniform was covered with ribbons and medals. He wore the stars of a general. General walked down the center aisle without saying a word. His boots clicked on the marble floor in perfect rhythm. Everyone in the courtroom watched him approach. Even Judge Brennan stopped talking and stared. The general reached Sam's table and stopped. He looked at the old man with kind eyes, then at the medal in Sam's hand. He nodded once, then turned to face the judge. Judge Brennan looked confused and angry. "Who are you? And why are you interrupting my courtroom?" The general stood at attention. General Robert Ayas, United States Army. Retired. "I believe you have something that belongs to this soldier." Judge Brennan's face went white. She looked at the general, then at Sam, then back at the general. "I don't know what you're talking about." General Hayes stepped forward. "Sergeant First Class Samuel Kovac, 173rd Airborne Brigade, Bronze Star with V Device for Valor, awarded December 15, 1967, for actions near Binh Ho, South Vietnam." He paused and looked directly at the judge. "I know because I was there." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Judge Brennan looked like she wanted to disappear. Sam stood straighter, tears still in his eyes. General Hayes continued. "On December 12, 1967, our firebase came under heavy attack. We were outnumbered 3-1. 7 of our men were wounded and trapped outside the wire. The enemy fire was so thick that nobody could reach them." He turned to look at Sam. "Sergeant Kovac volunteered to go out there alone. He crawled through enemy fire for 2 hours, making 7 trips to bring each wounded soldier back to safety. He took shrapnel in his leg and back, but he kept going until every man was safe." The general's voice got louder. "I was a young lieutenant then, and I watched this man risk his life 7 times to save his brothers. He didn't think about medals or glory. He just thought about bringing his boys home." Judge Brennan was shaking now. She looked around the courtroom at all the people staring at her. Some were recording with their phones. Others were shaking their heads in disgust. General Hayes held out his hand to Sam. "May I see your medal, Sergeant?" Sam handed over the Bronze Star. General Hayes looked at it carefully, then showed it to the judge. "This is real, Your Honor. I can tell because I have the same one, awarded the same day, for the same action. We were both there." He pinned the medal back on Sam's jacket, right over the small tear the judge had made. The general stepped back and saluted Sam. It was a sharp, perfect military salute. Sam's back straightened. Despite his age, he returned the salute with the same precision he had learned 57 years ago. The 2 men held the salute for several seconds, while the entire courtroom watched. General Hayes dropped his salute and turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, this man has given more to his country than most people give to anything in their entire lives. He deserves your respect, not your accusations." Judge Brennan sat down heavily. In her chair, her face was red with embarrassment and anger. She looked at Sam, then at the general, then at all the people in the courtroom who were staring at her. The general wasn't finished. He reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a copy of Sergeant Kovac's military records. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Vietnam Service Medal, Combat Infantry Badge, all earned through blood and sacrifice." He placed the paper on the judge's bench. "Perhaps next time you should verify your accusations before you humiliate a war hero in front of a room full of people." Judge Brennan picked up the paper with shaking hands. She looked at it for a long moment, then set it down. Her voice was barely a whisper when she spoke. "I apologize. Mr. Kovac, I was wrong to question your service and wrong to treat you that way." Sam nodded once but didn't say anything. The general put his hand on Sam's shoulder. The property case was settled quickly after that. Mrs. Chen's lawyer whispered to her again, and this time she nodded. She stood up and told the judge she was dropping the lawsuit. She had found the original property markers and realized Sam was right about the fence line. Judge Brennan approved the settlement and banged her gavel. As people started to leave the courtroom, many stopped to shake Sam's hand or pat his back. Some apologized for not speaking up earlier. General Hayes stayed until the courtroom was almost empty. He and Sam talked quietly for a few minutes, sharing memories of friends they had lost and battles they had survived. As they walked out together, Sam asked the general how he had known to come to the courtroom. The general smiled and pointed to a young woman near the door. She was holding a phone and wearing a press badge. "My granddaughter works for the local news," the general explained. "She was monitoring the police scanner and heard about what happened. She called me right away." Sam looked at the young woman and nodded his thanks. She smiled back and gave him a small salute. Outside the courthouse, more people had gathered. Word had spread quickly about what had happened inside. Some were veterans themselves, wearing parts of their old uniforms or veteran caps. Others were just people who wanted to show support. An old man in a navy hat walked up to Sam. He was about the same age, with similar scars and the same tired look in his eyes. He didn't say anything, just shook Sam's hand and nodded. Sometimes veterans don't need words to understand each other. A young soldier in modern army uniforms approached and asked if he could take a picture with Sam. The old veteran agreed, and soon other people wanted pictures too. Sam stood patiently, shaking hands and accepting thanks from strangers. General Hayes watched from nearby, smiling. He remembered being a young soldier himself, looking up to the older veterans who had come before him. Now he was the older one, and he was proud to stand with men like Sam. As the crowd slowly broke up, Sam walked to his old pickup truck. The Bronze Star was back on his jacket, pinned over the small tear that would always remind him of this day. He had won his court case, but more importantly, he had been reminded that his service still mattered. He drove home slowly, thinking about his wife Marie, who had died 3 years ago. She would have been proud of how he handled himself today. She always said he was the bravest man she knew, but he never felt brave. He just did what needed to be done. That evening, Sam sat in his living room and called his son in California. He told him about the day's events, and his son was angry about how the judge had treated him. But Sam wasn't angry anymore. He was just tired. Before bed, Sam took off his jacket and looked at the Bronze Star. The medal was tarnished and worn, but it was real. It represented the worst and best moments of his life. The friends he had lost, the men he had saved, and the brotherhood that lasted long after the war ended. He thought about the 7 soldiers he had carried to safety all those years ago. 3 of them had died in later battles, but 4 had made it home. They had families and children and grandchildren because of what Sam had done in those 2 hours of hell. Judge Brennan went home that night and couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the look in Sam's eyes when she tore the medal from his chest. She had made a terrible mistake, and she knew it would follow her for the rest of her career. The next morning, the story was on the front page of the local newspaper. The headline read, "Judge humiliates war hero in court. General sets record." Straight, the article included quotes from people who had been in the courtroom and pictures of Sam with General Hayes. Judge Brennan's phone rang all day with angry calls from veterans groups and local politicians. She issued a public apology, but she knew it wasn't enough. She had learned a hard lesson about making assumptions and judging people too. Quickly. Sam didn't read the newspaper article. He had moved on. He spent the morning working in his garden, the same garden he and Marie had planted together 40 years ago. The Bronze Star was pinned to his work shirt, and it would stay there for the rest of his life. Later that week, Sam received a letter from the Veterans Administration, heard about what happened, and wanted to make sure he was getting all the benefits he deserved. It turned out he was eligible for several programs he didn't know about. He also got letters from other veterans around the country who had heard his story. Some shared their own experiences with people who didn't understand their service. Others just wanted to say thank you for representing all veterans with dignity and grace. Sam kept all the letters in a box next to his chair. On quiet evenings, he would read them and remember that he wasn't alone. There were millions of veterans across the country who understood what he had been through. The courtroom incident became a reminder for everyone involved. Judge Brennan changed how she treated veterans in her court. General Hayes spoke about the importance of supporting older veterans, and Sam continued to live his quiet life. Proud of his service but never asking for special treatment, the Bronze Star stayed on Sam's jacket, over the small tear that told its own story. It was a reminder that heroes don't always look like heroes, and that true valor often comes in quiet packages that deserve our respect and gratitude.